Throughout human history, various crimes have been committed in the name of money, power, and religion. Be it child marriage, sati pratha, the Devdasi system, or anything else. We have always inflicted pain on others for our own gain to serve our beliefs. Today we're going to discuss one such tradition, one that in my view ranks among the gravest sins of humanity. I'm talking about Bacha Bazi.
همین بچه‌ها نیست؟ رقص بچه‌ها نیست؟ چی بچه‌ست؟ حالا این بچه بازی اینجا فروش خو ممانعت نیست. پلیس کار
An institutionalized network of child trafficking and human rights violations perpetrated against innocent children. In simple terms, Bacha Bazi translates to boy play or a game involving boys. You might be thinking, okay, so it's just a game played by boys. What's wrong with that? What's the harm? But I'm certain that your perspective will change completely in the next 10 minutes. Because this is not a game. It is a heinous trade involving the open buying and selling of innocent 6-year-old children, their physical assault, and the shattering of their very souls. A practice that doesn't happen hidden away in a closed room, but takes place brazenly in the presence of society's most powerful people. We usually associate such things with girls, but today your perspective on this will change entirely. Just imagine an 8-year-old child who ought to have toys in his hands is dressed in girls' clothing, fitted with ankle belts, forced to wear lipstick and kajal, and made to dance before a crowd of over 100 men. And these aren't just ordinary drunkards. They're armed officers aged between 35 and 80, men who are married and have children of their own. When the night ends, they take the dancing child away with them. The child goes to whoever bids the highest or holds the most power at the gathering. They keep using these young children in this manner. Once they tire of them, they sell or gift them to others, treating them as if they have no feelings at all. Now the question arises, how long does this go on? It continues until the child turns 15 or 16 and facial hair begins to appear. After that, the boy is simply cast aside. You might be wondering where this takes place, what happens to the child afterward, who is involved, and how this became a tradition. To find the answers, we need to understand the origins of Bacha Bazi. It all began in the late 19th century, about 125 years ago, in the regions of Central Asia and Afghanistan. At that time, a devastating cholera epidemic was sweeping through the area. There were no vaccines or proper medical treatments available, and thousands of people were dying every week. So local warlords, tribal elders, and religious figures capitalized on this situation, or rather used their cunning to spread a rumor. They claimed that the true cause of the epidemic was women stepping out of their homes to sing and dance, thereby inviting God's wrath. Consequently, a complete ban was imposed on women's public performances, gathering, and outdoor activities. However, these warlords, wealthy merchants, and commanders were determined to satisfy their cravings for music, dance, entertainment, and lust at any cost. They found a loophole in social norms and the law. If women could not dance, then young boys would be made to dance instead. Young boys were chosen because at that age they had no facial hair and were physically incapable of putting up much resistance. They abducted innocent boys from destitute families, dressed them in female attire, applied heavy makeup and kajal to their faces, strapped ghungroos to their feet, and forced them to dance at private gatherings. These children were taught to sing and dance as early as age 5 or 6. After which they became a barish, a boy kept by a landlord for his own company. The more such boys a man possessed, the more powerful he was considered. A saying even became prevalent in Afghanistan at that time: women are for procreation, but boys are for pleasure. The obsession with status was such that a single powerful warlord or military commander would keep anywhere from 5 to 20 victims of Bacha Bazi in his private compound. The more boys and the more handsome they were, a man possessed, the greater his fear, prestige, and power within the local warlord hierarchy. Warlords even competed over these boys. They were pitted against one another and exchanged as gifts. You can gauge the extent of the market and the normalization of this practice from the fact that DVDs of Bacha Bazi performances are still openly sold in local Afghan markets and bazaars today. These DVDs contain video recordings of dance performances by young boys, the abuse inflicted upon them, and the gatherings of warlords. Footage that people purchased on CDs and DVDs to watch in the privacy of their homes. International author Khalid Hossein also depicted this entire dark ecosystem in his world-famous novel, The Kite Runner, illustrating how those in power in Afghanistan dragged innocent children into the quagmire of Bacha Bazi, effectively robbing them of their childhoods. Beyond Hussein, when investigative journalists interviewed these warlords, their attitudes were shocking. One prominent warlord openly stated on camera, "Women are the honor of our households. We cannot have them dancing in front of others. These boys are for our pleasure. There is nothing wrong with it. It is our custom and we will not abandon it." Look at the data and the ground reality. 90% of the children targeted are between the ages of 10 and 17. Targets are families living in extreme poverty, those struggling for basic sustenance, or children who are orphans. Local agents lured these destitute families with the promise of 5,000 to 10,000 Afghanis per month, roughly equivalent to 6,000 to 12,000 Indian rupees. Poor parents believe their son has found employment with a wealthy man, but the reality is far darker. In truth, he is being as soon as a child enters the compound, his real name and identity are erased. They are given new feminine names. After being forced to dance at night, they are subjected to severe physical assault and gang abuse. To silence the children's screams, pain, and protest, warlords turn them into heavy addicts of heroin and opium. This chemical dependency becomes so intense that even a 12-year-old child cannot escape, becoming completely dependent on the warlord. Investigative reports by Human Rights Watch and the United Nations shook the world. According to the report, 60 to 70% of local police commanders, militia chiefs, and high-ranking government officials in Afghanistan's southern and eastern provinces were themselves operating, financing, or protecting this Bacha Bazi network. In other words, 7 out of 10 law enforcement officials were the very perpetrators of this crime. Between 2001 and 2021, US and NATO forces were fully aware of this. It was happening right near their base camps. But because they needed the military assistance of these warlords against the Taliban, US commanders turned a blind eye for years and allowed this institutionalized abuse to continue. The darkest phase of this entire network begins when these boys turn 17 or 18. As soon as facial hair appears, their market value to the warlord drops to zero, and they are cast out onto the streets. In extremely impoverished regions, helpless children are pushed into this exploitation for a mere 20 to 50 Afghanis, equivalent to 20 to 50 Indian rupees. With no education, no skills, and a severe heroin addiction, they are left with no option to return to a normal life. 80% of the victims either die from drug overdoses or are forced by circumstance to become procurement agents for the warlords themselves, dragging new 10 to 12-year-old children into this quagmire. Consider the scale of this ecosystem. Investigative field surveys indicate that in Afghanistan's rural and warlord-dominated provinces, 30 to 40% of the adult male population was involved in, complicit with, or consuming the services of this Bacha Bazi network. In 2017, following international pressure, Bacha Bazi was declared a criminal offense under Article 688 and 689 of the Afghan Penal Code, carrying a prison sentence of 7 to 15 years. However, the police commanders and judges responsible for enforcing the law were themselves clients of this syndicate. And the result, despite the law existing on the paper, the conviction rate was 0%. Not a single powerful warlord was jailed. After coming to power in 2021, the Taliban announced the death penalty for Bacha Bazi. Yet according to the underground reports and human rights watchdogs, the system has not been eradicated. It continues to operate more covertly than ever within private compounds in remote provinces. This is neither a tradition nor a culture. This is a network of power, armed corruption, and extreme poverty where the childhood of thousands of innocent children is destroyed every year. That is all for today. I hope you liked the story, and if you did, do like this video and don't forget to subscribe our channel. We'll see you in the next story.